So, good day, Shaw viewers. It's Mayor Ken with you again. Just a pleasure to be with you today on a very cold April morning, actually, but I'm sure our conversation will warm us up. At least I hope it does.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. On Monday, City Council considered all three readings of the tax rate bylaw. What is the rate the taxpayers will see on their property tax bills in June, and how does Red Deer rank in terms of non-residential tax rates?
Well, this was the second year of a 0% tax increase that council had approved in the budget deliberations of 2019, which seems such a long time ago. So essentially, our property taxes will not change year over year. In fact, we may see in some cases a slight decrease because the educational requisition, which is the portion of education taxes that our city collects for the province, is actually down for Red Deer. And so we may see just a very, essentially, I would say it's break even. To your bigger question, I think, in terms of how Red Deer ranks, Red Deer's tax rate on a residential basis is 12%, 12 to 15% lower than the average tax rate paid in all of Alberta. And I think that's very, very significant because we value the services that our city provides, whether it's in emergency services or transit or snow clearing, for example, or recreation. And I think every Red Deerian should be cheered and feel great about the fact that they're getting a high value for those taxes at a 12 to 15% discount to the average taxpayer in the entire province. So, when we consider, as I say, value and the services that we have, we are very, very fortunate to call Red Deer our home.
And council also reviewed the business tax rate. Can you speak a little bit about how that landed and what that means for business owners?
Well, it's another good news story, actually, because our business tax rate is the most competitive tax rate in the entire province. A couple of things that Red Deer has going for it specifically is what's called the residential and business tax ratio. So in other words, how do business taxes versus residential taxes come into a ratio relationship? So that is the lowest now in all of Alberta. And when you consider especially that jurisdictions like Red Deer have no business tax per se, no equipment tax, for example, that other jurisdictions do as well. It's important that we keep that ratio low. And the reason is, of course, is to retain business in Red Deer and to attract business in Red Deer. And as I said about the residential side of things, when you consider the services, and certainly businesses benefit from a very responsive economic development department, from a very responsive land and licensing department, and so forth, it's important for small business owners to keep that side of their equation so competitive so that actually they can get on to the real work of small business, which is job creation and sustaining our economy in a very healthy way. So it was also a good news story for the business side.
And still on tax rate, council approved a reduced tax penalty on Monday. Can you talk about a little bit about why that came about?
It came about mostly or mainly from administration's recommendation that we, of course, become very sensitive, and council itself is very sensitive to those folks that are economically challenged, and there are many of us due to COVID, closures, reopening, closures again, partial opening, all those things. So council was very, very, sensitive to this and decided that if you couldn't pay your property taxes on time, that the penalties for those would be reduced to allow you to catch up. I think it's very significant, and a tribute to all Red Deerians and their civic pride and their sacrifice that, over 99% of our taxes were collected over the last a couple of years of COVID, which is outstanding when you think of how the impact to our economy has been. But for those folks that couldn't pay on the deadline, if you will, on the time frame, council was very sensitive to that and took the penalties and lowered them for them.
Thank you. Council also reviewed tribunal and procedure bylaw. We've spoken before about the procedure bylaw a little bit when it was before council for first reading. It passed third reading this week. Can you talk about when it will come into effect and the changes the public might see?
Well, first of all, to the tribunal bylaw, just a few comments on that. You know, it's very rare that you can take one board, which in this case was a subdivision and an appeal board, and a board that used to be called the Red Deer Appeal and Review Board, and you can create, you know, more boards and be more efficient. It's almost counterproductive, but that's exactly what we did. So we were able to take the membership of the subdivision and appeal board or the review board and share them across the other boards. So in other words, we didn't create more board members, and it enabled us in gatherings of 5, 3, or 1 person to be able to hear appeals around fines, for example, for noxious weeds or unsightly properties or whatever. So we become much more efficient there. I think the public will really appreciate that. As it relates to the procedure bylaw, it comes into effect on May 9th, and the reason it does is to allow the public 30 days, particularly around the issue of public hearings, which is the most, I would say, material part where it touches the public, to give people a sort of a 30-day notice that this is what they can expect when they come into public hearings. The most material change from that perspective was speaking times for the public were reduced from 10 minutes to 5 minutes. And while that might seem like, you know, why did you do it that way? Essentially, many more people, and I'm glad to see many more people come out to public hearings and to try to make them as efficient as possible, and still to allow people an opportunity to get their voice heard. The speaking time was reduced, but of course, people can still contribute by email, by letter, for example, or even by sending someone in their place to a public hearing. So I think that's the major change in procedure. To those folks that tune us in or attend council meetings, and we're looking forward to getting our public back soon to council meetings, I think you'll see a more streamlined council meeting. The duties of the chair have been expanded a little bit. The speaking times for councilors have been, I would say, not reduced, but regulated a little more. So I think people are going to see a little bit more efficiency in council, and a lot more focus on the main points of debate. And I look forward to that, and I think the public will too.
Thank you. Shifting into shelter, in an effort to be more transparent, this week council voted to make all the confidential information on the permanent shelter process available to the public. Why do you think this is an important step in this process?
I think you know, what we heard, which actually was the title of the report given to us by Maven Consulting. Most of our viewers will probably remember that through the month of February and into March, Maven went out and did a public consultation around the proposed site of the shelter in rail yards. And what we heard in that conversation was the community wants to get involved from a partnership perspective with our city in terms of helping us go and source a location and add their input. So I think it was very, very important step forward. I commend our city manager and her team for bringing this to council. A very important step forward was to allow the public to see the depth of the debate and the depth of the search that council has been on these last couple of years. The report itself, of course, was redacted or what's a better word, I suppose, you know, sort of edited would be a better word, around property owners, property addresses and so on, because these lands are still in sale cycles, still in ownership cycles, and the Privacy Act must, you know, come to play in a case like that. But if you're like me, any member of the public that's reading through that report, and again, I encourage them, particularly those that want to add their input, you will see an extraordinary effort and extraordinary depth of research. And that's why that report was released. So if you're coming now to some engagement sessions that are being planned for the middle of May or so, you really have a far, far better idea of the community search that was conducted by your mayor and your council and your administration. So it was a great step forward.
Speaking of engagement, council also directed admin to conduct further discussions to determine the level of influence in order to develop a full public participation strategy. What
Yes.
can the public expect to come out of those conversations?
Well, if, we spoke about this word in council quite frequently on Monday, and that word was clarity. And it's so vital that when you go out to engage, you're very clear, if you will. First of all, you're very clear in your own mind, which is why administration wanted to gather up council and really take it through and say, okay, when we go to engage, are we resolved that these are the issues, these are the parameters that we can influence, and so on. So there's unity between administration and council, which was the purpose of admin bringing the report to council. But beyond that, of course, there is now clarity and unity between the community, which is the folks that we want to consult with, of course, our citizens, and our administration and council. So everyone is on the same page. So I believe we have a workshop coming up on the 19th, which is just a week or so from now, a little less than a week. That's when we're going to hammer out the clarity that administration is looking for. We're under what's called a memorandum of understanding with the province, which sets out the provincial side of the shelter and the municipal side of the shelter. So again, when we go out to consult with our public, we will need to be clear on where we can influence and how we can influence as a municipality. So really, this is an absolutely incredible opportunity for us because, as I say, when the public came to us over the first round of consultations, they said, let us help you search. Let's stand with you. Let's stand beside you and help find a solution that works for the community. And so this is why we will be gathering now in a week or so before we go out. And once again, I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Is there anything else from Monday's council meeting that you would like to mention to our viewers?
Well, this was our first council meeting, that we could gather as an entire body, as all of council. Our viewers will probably remember that we came back to council chambers a few weeks ago, around the first of the month or so, but we still hadn't passed the council bylaw around the vaccination policy. Once we passed that, that enabled all of our council to come together, and really, it was really tremendous to see all 9 of us together in a council setting for the first time. So I think the quality of the debate was higher. I think our ability to share perspectives, because we're in a personal environment, was higher. And I really think the public benefits, of course, when their mayor and council can get to that level of debate and sharing. So I thought that was particularly beneficial for us. Folks, as I say, it's always a pleasure to be with you. And, just doing a little personal reflection this morning, the month of April, is significant across our community, across our country. Frankly, we have Passover, we have Easter, we have Ramadan, we have the Sri Lankan New Year, and we may have other community events. So forgive me, your mayor is either forgetful this morning or not aware of, so begging your indulgence there. But I bring up those 4 in particular to allow us to get a sense in the month of April of a renewal, of a new beginning, of a sort of outreach or fresh start that these particular feasts bring in. So I'm just encouraging everyone this morning to grasp the opportunity to find a sense of renewal, to reach out to neighbors, to reach out to family, to encourage where you can, to lift where you can, because these festivals and these feasts and these holy days remind us that together Together we build our world, and together we lift our world. So I just wanted to leave our good viewers with that message this morning.